You just kind of want to like shake him by the shoulders a lot during this book, and you're just like, why the hell do you feel like you deserve that? I felt like I went through the war. It's very like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Are people gonna find out? Hi, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you everything that I've read so far since June and this month. So for the past like 2 months, because July is pretty much almost over. I'll show you everything I've read. I've read all of these books and I'll go through them in chronological order of when I read them. My Goodreads is also going to be linked down below in the description if you want to follow me there, add me as a friend, and you can see what I'm currently reading. And I'll show you all the things I'm currently reading as well. So yeah, I went through about 4 books in the space of 8 weeks and I'm currently reading like 3. I'll go over those when I talk about them. But hi, I'm just so happy that you guys are here and spending time with me. Let me know how you're doing in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys are currently reading as well. I love reading. It's so nice. It's such good self-care for me anyway. After I read Beautiful People, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, I got on a Sally Rooney kick and I got Normal People in Conversation with Friends. I went ahead and read those. I started off with Normal People first. Normal People is great. I do have to say that Sally Rooney is a great author. She's the way she writes is great. And the fact that like it's very relatable. She has these characters that are very flawed and kind of toxic, and I feel like whenever I've read her books I was just like, I felt very like, wow, very moved, very like, you know, when you watch an emotional like movie, you just feel very like kind of heavy. It's not super light and like romancy or anything. There's a lot of just coming of age. Follows 2 characters, Marianne and Connell. I love that she's like a UK writer, so a lot of her stories are based off in like Ireland. Or they go to like Trinity. In my mind it was just like, oh, it's a beautiful green lush world over there. That's where the setting was for me in this. So it follows them and they've kind of known each other all their lives. They knew each other in school, and then it follows them like college as well, a university, and it's in both of their perspectives. It switches off and you just kind of want to like shake him by the shoulders a lot during this book, and you're just like, why the hell do you feel like you deserve that? I think that's an amazing attribute to this writer, that she can make characters that just feel so real and so relatable and just very human. She writes humanity pretty well. I think this book and Conversation with Friends is it's just life. It's not a Disney movie at all, and that's what I really like about her stuff as well. It's just, I don't know, you just want to give the characters like a big hug, but then you're like, oh, I see myself in that character, I need to give myself a big hug. And the ending, oh, I remember reading Joe, the ending, I was just like, listen to this, holy hell, like what, how? Yeah, good. I'd recommend. I finished it really quickly, and I think that's why I was just like really stunned at the end. I was just like, I felt like I went through the war. I was very hooked. It's a very easy read. You could just read it all the way through in like a day if you wanted to. And I started watching the series on Hulu. I only watched like the first episode, but I almost like reading the book a bit better. The first episode is really, I don't know, slow, but then again I think it follows probably the pace of the book. But sometimes in the TV and book translating it, like you don't necessarily think that's how it's gonna be in a series, and I think I like the series. I haven't finished it yet. I don't know why I tend to like read books that like end up being films or whatnot, and I guess that's just because they kind of end up being really good. Go check out Normal People by Sally Rooney. Super great. Highly recommend. Conversations with Friends. They took it off Hulu. Why? And now I can't watch it at all, and unless I'm in the UK and watch it on BBC 3 or something. So yeah, I can't watch Joe Allen, but reading the book is great. Again, she writes these very kind of intricate, flawed characters that have their own sort of battle within themselves. And what's different about this book, compared to her other ones, she kind of showed us different perspectives in Normal People and in Beautiful World, Where Are You? This one, it just is in the perspective of Frances. It's just her perspective through it all. She has a friend, Bobby. Actually, it's her ex, Bobby, and she's kind of a very open sexual person, and I love that. I love how Sally Rooney has just written this very fluid spectrum sexuality between these like four characters. Bobby and Frances, they're friends. They were in a relationship like in high school, but they're still friends, and that's like all the relationship experience that Frances has had. And then they meet this couple, Nick and his wife. What was her name? Melissa. So they met Nick and Melissa, and they're married, and somehow or another their lives, you know, come together. They become kind of friends, and then Frances and Nick kind of become something. It's very like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Are people gonna find out? It's so strange how like you can read about like infidelity or whatnot in a relationship, because like the relationship felt very open already. You didn't necessarily feel terrible that what Frances and Nick were kind of doing. It felt like water, like everything was just flowing. It didn't, but then when, I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, stuff happens. I think the character of Nick is very, I don't know, you feel all these things towards this person. You're just like, you just want to like make him a cup of tea and give him a hug. And Frances, I love her. She's just a little tormented soul. And I think the thing is, like, Sally Rooney, she creates these characters that are very like flawed, and they all have their own like journeys that they kind of go through, and they go through that in the book, and it's very enlightening. But they're very heavy, so like I felt very, I don't want to say drained after reading them, but I definitely felt like I needed to take some breaks in between. Oh, like reading over and over about like this person that just feels the way that they feel, like kind of down about themselves, but then like, you know, dramatic stuff happens at the same time. It's good. It's just you need a little Disney movie or something in the middle of it. So I wish I could watch the series, but they took it off Hulu, so don't know when I'll be able to watch that. Then I finally finished my toothbrush book. I finished Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. I got this book in Washington when I went with Joe at the beginning of the year. It caught my eye. I went to this really nice bookshop in Seattle, and they have like this description of somebody that worked there. This was one of their favorite books because they just felt like it moved them, and I can definitely see, like, yeah, I felt very moved. So the format of this book is the main character is like writing letters to their son, but it's not like dear son da da da. It's just kind of like prose, very, this is what's going on, this is what I'm dealing with, and there's no chapters, there's no like dates or anything. It's just, here we go. And it sets place in the early 1900s, after the Civil War, after the Dust Bowl. They don't have a lot, so it's, you know, 100 years ago basically. And the town is called Gilead. I chose this book as like my toothbrush book because I could just read like a couple of pages like while I was brushing my teeth, and not feel like I was so out of place, because I felt like any time you could stop after a paragraph, that was a good stopping place, because you would start reading it and it was like the next day that he was writing. He's basically like a pastor, and his dad was a pastor, and he has a son, and he's writing because he's sick, and he's writing these letters to his son so his son knows who he is. So as you start reading it and getting in the middle of it and following like this, you know, life of his, and like these friends of his, and his interactions with these people, and what he thinks, and like a lot of, it's very like, because he's a pastor, it's also very like kind of spiritual and philosophical, and because even though he's a pastor, it's not so much like very right side or very left wing. Like I feel like it's very like in the middle. It's very, I felt like his values were very out of love and kindness It's very nice starting off my day with it or ending my day with it when I was brushing my teeth. It took a little bit because, you know, I was reading like 2-3 pages at a time. It was still really good. By the end of it, you just kind of wanted to cry because at the end of it, you know that he's no longer writing anymore. Which is no secret because you know, because he's like, I'm writing it because I'm very sick. I don't know, I want Joe to read it because I think it's something that he would really like to read. So I definitely know why it won the Pulitzer Prize. She's a good writer. I recommend it if you're into stories about spiritual stuff and following a pastor's perspective. Okay, so after that, I picked up Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I went through this one pretty quickly. This format is really awesome. It doesn't have like chapters. It has like different like timelines in the book that are like chunked off, but the format of it is like a documentary, so it's like a character and like what they're saying and another character and what they're saying. So it follows like all these different characters that were in the band Daisy Jones and the Six, their perspective of everything and how they came to be and how they started, how they met Daisy. It's also a show on Amazon Prime and I did watch it, but I prefer the book. There's some things that happened in the show that didn't happen in the book, and I kind of like how things happened in the book. I understand that things can't be the same. I think if it was exactly the same as the book, I don't think it would be as entertaining on screen. So they had to dramatize it, I think, a bit more to hook the audiences. But when you just read like the perspectives like on paper and learn about these characters, like that's entertainment enough. There is a lot of like drug use and drinking and addiction in this book, so I think if you are triggered by any of that, you might want to stay away. I don't know, but if you're totally fine with reading that, like go ahead. It's good. It's heavy at times. As somebody that's kind of triggered by like 1970s rock music because I have a past in classic rock that kind of makes me anxious. That's another story. I was just reading this and I was just like, okay, cool. Yeah, I know all this classic rock stuff. I know a lot about like Fleetwood Mac and AC/DC and all that shit. And it's like, you know, bell-bottom hippy dippy like times, and that's great. I like that aesthetic for sure. But yeah, there is a lot of, you know, drug use and smoking. The character of Daisy Jones, she made me really sad. And then Billy just like tore my heart out as well. And there was definitely a couple of times where I just laughed out loud because some of the things were just so funny, because like not everybody remembers the things that happened in the 70s, like when they became a band. I think they're interviewing them like, you know, 20 years later. Billy will be like, that never happened, da, da, da. And then this other person is just like, oh yeah, this fucking happened. And it's just like funny. Everybody wants to remember things differently, but as a whole you kind of get this big picture of how they became a band during the time period and LA. The end of it, I think it was good. You know, the way they wrapped up everything. I just almost felt like everything went to chaos way too quickly. I don't know. Shit hit the fan all at once, and I don't know if that kind of took me out of the book a little bit, because I was like, oh, is that even real? You know, when things get a little too unrealistic, you're like, oh yeah, I'm reading a book. Sometimes I don't necessarily like that. I like to know that like I'm just like in this world. I want to feel completely immersed, and so if something takes me out of it, I'm like, oh. But everybody's different, so I think when things got a little bit too chaotic, I was just like, what? Check this book out if one of your favorite movies is like Almost Famous, because it definitely had that same like band fandom 1970s rock and tour life. I really enjoyed this book, and I enjoyed watching the series and seeing the similarities and the differences and how they went about doing that. Like, I read it first before I watched it. I prefer the book. Yep. Those are my completed books that I've read in June and July. And what I'm currently reading these three: Jojo Moyes The Giver of Stars, I'm reading this in the bath when I get home from work. I'm on chapter 6, and it's a really nice book so far. I'll let you know what I think about it when I'm done with it, but it's very, not Little House on the Prairie, but it's just very kind of like lighthearted, nice. It gets a little spicy at times, but also it's just like wholesome. There's a wholesome novel to come out of these other fantasy books that I'm reading. I'm reading Fellowship, as you guys have seen in my past videos. I've been reading Fellowship of the Ring. I read it at night during the week when I'm getting ready for bed, and I am on chapter 8, Fog on the Barrow Downs. I'm just really proud of myself. I'm like 150 pages in. I've always wanted to read the Lord of the Rings series. I think I always thought it was a little too intimidating, but I love the movies and I love the trilogy. Yeah. It's about time that I get into it. And after starting this other book that I read, I was like, I can totally read Fellowship. It's not out of my league, and it's just like such a beautiful world, and it's cozy and very cottagecore vibes. So really happy that I started this. This other book that I've been reading Dune by Frank Herbert. It's amazing sci-fi fantasy. There's like 3 books in this one, and I'm almost done with book 1. I practically am. I'm like a page and a half away, and then it's book 2 on 323. This book, I think, is just masterful. You know, it just builds this world of Arrakis and the Harkonnens and Spice and Paul and his mom and like the Duke, and it's just like all of a sudden, like at the end of book 1, you know, it starts getting, you know, like shit's hitting the fan, things are crazy, and I'm like, yes! It just took a little bit because, you know, there's just all this history, all this world building, all these like little pawns that need to be put in place before knight to rook, you know. Really happy that I've been reading this. So yeah, I'm reading kind of some bigger books. I wouldn't say like I'm in a reading slump because I'm reading these, but I'm just kind of taking my time, I guess. You only read Fellowship and Dune, like, you know, the first time reading them, you know, I just want to like savor them. And yeah, that's everything that I'm currently reading, everything that I read in June and part of July. Follow me on Goodreads. I'll link it down below so you can just keep up with everything that I'm reading. And I hope if any of these books caught your interest that you just let me know. I hope you like them just as much as I did. I want Sally Rooney to come up with something because I think I read everything first. I think that's all that she's come out with so far. I want her to come out with something else now because I'm hungry. I'm hungry for it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you're liking the videos, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for spending your time with me. I enjoy having you here. It makes my day. I hope you're having a good day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you. Bye.